Greetings and salutations. This is Miko bringing to you an audio version, the spoken word, of my weekly column on Macedonian matters. The English version is published on Medium.com, and the Macedonian version is published on Svest.mk. This week's column, which is published on Monday, December 16, 2018, is titled First Greece, Now Bulgaria, and Then Some, as Zaev learns nothing. Like my last column, there's just so much going on in and around Macedonia that I'll do this in a point-by-point format. First, the fallout from last week's firestorm with Greece continues. As you'll recall, last week Macedonian Prime Minister Zoran Zaev was accused by Greece of claiming that there is a Macedonian language and that there is a Macedonian minority in Greece. Granted, Zaev said all of this in order to attempt to win more votes for his so-called Prespa agreement. I'm not actually sure if he believes there is a Macedonian language or Macedonians living for ages in present-day Greece. Nevertheless, the Greeks erupted as they denied that there is a Macedonian identity, language, country, etc. Now, according to media reports, Greece will be requesting an annex from the United Nations to the so-called Prespa agreement, and that, according to these reports, quote, the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras will ask the UN for an additional protocol that would make the Prespa agreement more precise, meaning it will limit the space for stating the language and the nation, unquote. What this means in actual terms is that Greece will attempt to restrict free speech. In this case, Greece will attempt to make it so that the Prespa agreement will limit the use of the terms Macedonian language and Macedonian minority. This means that, if Prespa is passed by both governments, Greece will forever be raising objections any time that any member of the Macedonian government says or writes, quote, Macedonian language or, quote, Macedonian minority. This will extend to any organization or individual that receives any Macedonian government support. Think Manu, sports clubs, the film agency, everything. If the Macedonian government does not comply with Greek demands, well, then Greece would say, nice little EU application you got there.
You've got a nice army base there, Colonel.
Yes.
We wouldn't want anything to happen to it.
Then there is this next. According to Katamarini, the Macedonian government is prepared to no longer refer to, quote, Macedonians living abroad, unquote, and will now refer to them as, quote, immigrants, unquote. How's that for living up to your commitment to defend Macedonians? Bravo, Zaev. Before moving on to Bulgaria, there are two more issues with Greece. The first is Greece's defense minister and leader of the independent Greeks and the junior coalition party in the government of Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. He vehemently opposes Macedonia calling itself, well, Macedonia, in any reference to a Macedonian language or identity. He continues to make provocative statements like this one, in which he claimed that Macedonia needs to, quote, realize that there is only one Macedonia and it is Greek. This will be their passport to future prosperity, unquote. He also recently stated, quote, Skopje's irredentist and provocative behavior shows the international community that not only is it unprepared to be a part of international organizations, but also vindicates all those who have insisted from the start on the certainty that they are trapped in the propaganda of Mussolini and Tito, unquote. This dovetails nicely with this next issue. Tom Ellis, the editor of the English language Katamarini, subtly threatened Macedonia in comments in a recent column on the issue. He said, even if the deal passes in Greece, Macedonia will, quote, face a slew of issues on which it will need Athens' support and cooperation. Maintaining the existing level of tension will only prove harmful to FYROM's long-term interests, unquote. Translation in plain English? If you, Macedonia, want to join the EU, then you'll keep your damn mouth shut with regard to any, quote, Macedonian language or, quote, Macedonian minority. Ellis goes on to call such statements about the language and minorities as, quote, over the top, which will contribute to the, quote, detriment of the deal's long-term success, unquote, and that such an approach will certainly complicate Macedonia's EU accession process. Again, this means that Greece will forever be raising objections anytime any member of the Macedonian government says or writes, quote, Macedonian language or, quote, Macedonian minority. This will extend to any organization or individual that receives any Macedonian government support. Again, think Manu, sports clubs, the film agency, everything. And now, cue Bulgaria. Not to be outdone, the Bulgarians jumped on board this issue with predictable results. Last week, Bulgarian Defense Minister Krasimir Karakachnov accused Macedonia of continuing to, quote, play tricks, falsify history, and to force a Macedonian identity and language not only within Macedonia, but also on Bulgarian territory, unquote. Readers might recall that last year, the government of Zoran Zaev forced through a so-called treaty of, quote, good neighborly relations, unquote, with Bulgaria, and that, even now, the two countries have established a commission to look at schoolbooks with an eye to revising them. Last month, the Bulgarian foreign minister handed over 30 pages of remarks about the history textbooks from Macedonian schools from the 6th and 7th grades. The Bulgarians found, quote, serious problems, unquote, with the Macedonian schoolbooks. You can be sure that the government of Zoran Zaev will agree to change Macedonian schoolbooks and history to satisfy the Bulgarians. But back to the Bulgarian defense minister and his statement that a Macedonian language and identity does not exist. According to Balkan Insight, Andrei Kovachev, a member of the European Parliament from the ruling Grb party, backed the defense minister. He told a local TV station that, quote, we want to help them, meaning Macedonia. He said, quote, this is why we urge them with the best possible intentions. Don't allow such provocations and, as you say in the Western Bulgarian dialect, empower this historical committee to complete its work on the basis of authentic documents. The defense minister also threatened Macedonia's EU and NATO accession over the issue, stating it should not join. What defense did the government of Zoran Zaev offer in response? A lame response of, quote, the Republic of Macedonia will continue its act in constructive, good neighborly policy in the future in the spirit of the treaty with Bulgaria and the European values, unquote. Zaev learns nothing. He wants EU and NATO membership so badly that he is willing to sacrifice his identity, history, language, culture, heritage, and name in pursuit of it. And not just his, but Macedonia's. I leave you, as always, with two thoughts. Number one, there are more good things in this life than you can possibly imagine. And number two, the proper attitude is always gratitude. Thanks for listening.